Hey, hello everyone. I know it's been a while since my last video was posted, but obviously, as those of you who watched the last videos remember, when I was recording the last few videos, there was word that the website configurator and the conversion tool was going to change again. So I figured, so many of my videos are now obsolete because the website doesn't even look anything like it did, when I started recording these videos, and I've actually had to re-record some of them so as not to confuse people. So the same thing was going to happen again. So I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to stop right now until everything settles down, and then I'll think about, continuing. So finally, in March 26th of 2024, the website configurator and the conversion tool was updated again and changed. So maybe now is the time, to go back and revisit some of those videos and show everybody the way it is done now and get rid of the old videos, so it doesn't confuse anybody. But before we get started, I'd just like to remind everybody that I am not a representative of SimVimX or Real Sim Control. I have basically the only thing I do is I support them on Patreon, and I use their product, which I recommend anybody who likes this solution for the flight simulator home cockpit. Go over there and support them. It doesn't have to be a lot. A few dollars a month goes a long way if it's a lot of people doing it. And I still think that this is the best solution for home cockpit, easily, hands down, as far as when it comes to how easy it is to use it. So um, this is going to be just a quick overview of the new website, of the new configurator, not so much the new configurator because that's going to require a little bit more in-depth. But right now I'm just going to go over how the new website is laid out. And I know the instructions on the website are very clear, but I just want to go over it because I know it's a lot different when you look at it and read it than when you actually see it. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do on this particular video. I mean, overall, the website has changed, but it's still pretty familiar. So I'm going to go ahead and head over to the website now and we can get started on that. Okay, so here is the website, the new one. A lot of the things are still pretty much the same. So like if you go up here to the top and you go to the hardware section, you can see that it still has all the information on the different types of devices and stuff that you can connect to, your setup. And then we have the configuration tool up here. And then we have tech tips, which show you, how to do instruments or different kinds of wiring for different things. And then obviously, if you use the SimVim panel little plugin also, actually, I don't even know if that's a plugin. That's actually an actual program. I still haven't played with that at all, but that one will help you put extra screens in your setup to display the instruments and everything. So that's also a pretty handy um, program that you can use in conjunction with SimVimX. And I think it's pretty awesome, but I still need to play with it. All right, so right here, obviously, you just got your instructions for, the underlying foundation of SimVim, how it works. You go to the structure, obviously, it tells you the basic connection here. You go here for the plugin. You can download the latest plugin in the latest simvim.x.dat file, which is very important to have the latest one in order for your configurations to work properly or to communicate with the plugin. Then you got it talks about the firmware, basically how to connect the Arduino and how to flash the SimVimX firmware on it for the first time, and also if you're doing an upgrade. But I plan on making a video on that too. And then you got the history, since they started working on this project, all the different iterations that it has been through. And then of course you got just some notes here. So obviously for the purposes of configuring and making a home cockpit, we need to go to the configuration tool. So this is the new configuration tool here. It looks a lot different. If you remember before, you had over here a layout of all the pins, and then you can see what you had on each one of them. Either the function that you had, or if you had an input multiplexer or an output multiplexer, you would see that. So now it's a little bit different, but we'll go through that in time. Um, so up on the top here, you see this little question mark here. Um, the funny thing is when I started playing with this new system, And I saw this connection diagram thing here, and that's what allows you to see everything that you have connected in a similar way to what you had when you had the list over here on the side. But this is just a pretty much basic, as they say, a 30,000 foot overview of everything you have connected. So, once I started going into the maps, these are what they call the maps. So you have, the cockpit and main, which will give you, different categories of instruments and controls that you want to assign functions to. And then you got the systems, which basically breaks it up into electrical, lighting, hydraulic, fuel, bleed air conditioning, pressure, all of those. Obviously, you can see them right here. Okay, and then you got avionics, which is the different types of radios, GPS, navigation, communication, DME, ADF, all those different things, transponders, obviously, and all the GPS units. And then you got the individual aircraft. Some of them are not complete yet. They're still working on them. So I believe like if you do the 747, uh, there's still nothing on that one. It actually nothing even came up. But if you do like the 737, then you got different maps, and then you got, the different sections of the 737 here, which you can uh, go to assign different functions. Now, what I wanted to know now is how do I get back, once you assign stuff, how do I get back to that diagram again where you can see everything that you have connected? And I couldn't figure out a way how to do it. So after much experimentation without having to actually get out of the website and or reload it again so that it can show up again, I finally found out that if you click on this little question mark here, it brings back this home page here, and then you can see your connection diagram again. So that's how you get back. If you ever want to go back to see this without having to start over from scratch, you just click on that little question mark right there. All right, so there's a couple of things that I really like about this new setup. One of the ones that I have asked for a long time, and I know that behind the scenes, it must be terrible and very much time consuming for them to be able to do this. But I always wanted, because I was going through different configuration files for different airplanes, because obviously on some airplanes, like let's say the a Cessna 172 or the PA-30 Twin Comanche doesn't have the same functions and the same instruments and everything as the Boeing 737 does, right? So I didn't, and I tried to work with selectors over the course of time, to do that. And it always was like a lot of work, to use one configuration file for many different aircraft. It was a pain. I asked I asked Vlad a long time ago, is there any way, because they used to have it for a little while, that you can use a different configuration file for each airplane, which would make it a lot simpler just to assign the parameters and keywords that you wanted for that particular airplane for that on that configuration file. Okay, so what I had to do is actually have multiple configuration files, which then I would rename like Zibo .cfg or PA30.cfg, Airfoil Labs Cessna 172.cfg, and then when I wanted to fly that airplane, I would have to go back and rename it data.cfg. So, and if I didn't remember, then I would load it in my airplane and I would start wondering, oh no, why is this not working? Why is that not working? It's because I had a configuration file for a different airplane. So one of the cool things that I like about this a lot is that now you can have a dedicated configuration file and a custom conversion file for each aircraft. So now I don't have to go do none of that renaming. So the way it works is if, when you rename or you make a configuration file for a specific airplane, you have to select the actual folder name of the aircraft, which all of these things I will go over in different videos at a later time individually because it's way too much to cover in just one video. So then you name them according to that folder, and then when you load up that aircraft, it uses that configuration file. And if you don't load up any specific aircraft that you have made a custom configuration file for, it just uses the basics default data.config. So once again, another thing that I like is that when you go to the configurator or to the converter, for example, right here, this is when you go to start a conversion or continue changing a conversion file. So when you do this, now you don't have to be logged in. I don't know how many of you remember that before, if you wanted to do into custom configuring or custom converting, you had to log in with your username and password for the forums or the website here. And also, when you logged in, it automatically loaded the last configuration file that you were working on, which is something I also didn't like, because then I was like, oh, come on, I have to go back and reload the other configuration file that I wanted to work on. Now it doesn't do that. Now when you come here to the custom conversion file, now you can start a new one, or you can open an existing one, and then you can save it, obviously. And I will go into all that in a separate video as well. So those are the things that I really like about it. So everything is good. Now, as you probably read on the website here, the back button is disabled whenever you are in the configurator or the custom conversion. So every time if you try to click on it, it won't do anything. And now if you try to get out, like for example, let's say I wanted to go look at the hardware section, it warns you that if you had been working on something and you leave, you're going to lose any changes that you made. So you need to make sure that you save it first before you try to leave the website. Okay, but now let me go to uh, we're going to go over some basics. Now, obviously, you notice that when I went to the custom conversion section here, the button that used to say convert now changed to config. So this is how you can go back between the config file and the custom conversion file. So you can be working on both of them at the same time. And before, it's like you had to save the keyword or function that you wanted to make a custom conversion for before, but now you don't have to do that. You can select the custom conversion that you want, and then you can assign it and work on it then. So we're going to go to the configuration section for now, and we're going to go through the basics. So continuing up here on the top, this is where you can open an existing configuration file. So for example, if I went into my folder, and let's say I went into my Explain 11 resources, plugins, SimVimX, and I did return, I've been playing around with it a lot, but I did return all my SimVim stuff back to the way I had it before the March 26th update, because as I'm recording these videos, I'm going to go through the steps of how to upgrade the firmware and all that stuff, so or the plugin. So I wanted to start with the old stuff that I used to have before. So obviously, let's say I open up my standard default data configuration file. So now I opened it, and the center thing right here, this is what shows the name of that file. So right now I have the standard default data.config. So this right here is what allows you to change it to a custom aircraft. If you wanted to make a configuration file for a specific aircraft, when you click on it here, it tells you please enter, and it says paste, because if you make a mistake in like one space or something that's in the name of the folder, and you make a mistake, it's not going to work. It's not going to load it. So the recommended thing to do is to copy the name of the folder itself and paste it over here instead of trying to hand type it, so you don't make any mistakes. Okay, so just make sure you don't include any extra spaces at the end, for example. All right, so this is where you will rename it. But let's say right now I just wanted to leave it like that. So I already have this one saved. Now, if you go to the connection diagram, now you can see that it shows me where I have all my input multiplexers. I have 7 segment displays. I have 2 analog axes, which is for the 737 is a fuel cutoff switches. And then I have some LEDs right here, some direct LEDs. So that's what I have right now on this configuration file. Okay, now the thing about this is, like for example, when you click on a number here, it shows you all the things you have in that multiplexer. And you can do one of two things. You can either close it and then go to something else, and you can see what assigned keyword or function you have for that particular display right here. Or you can click on pin right here, and you can see the map of everything that you have connected in a different way. Obviously this one has a legend here. So the light blue ones are input multiplexers, which I have, which you can also see over here, the ones that are input multiplexers. And then you have direct LEDs, which are the yellow ones here. And then you can see the displays, the darker blue ones here. Those are the 7 segment displays directly connected to the Arduino. And other things obviously have other colors here. So the only thing I wanted to show right now is basically the little bit of navigation that you have to do. All right, so now let's say I did make some changes to this file, right? So we're gonna go over all that in the next videos, but this is where you would go to save the configuration file. So let's just say you did make some changes and you go to save it. It's gonna give you that warning about, you know, hey, if you have any changes that you haven't saved, you know, you're gonna lose them. But this one is actually okay because you're trying to save the changes that you made. So when you do that, it opens up the save dialog. So I would obviously, you know, go back to my SimVim resources, oops, plugins, SimVimX folder, and then you see how it always puts, for example, this is Chrome, it always puts a 1 if you already have a file that has that name. So you need to make sure, in order for you to save it and so that the simulator can read it, you need to make sure you click on the one you're trying to replace and then save it, and then it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to replace it? So you say yes, and so that's it, you're done with that. And it's going to be the similar process when you go to a custom conversion. Okay, so one of the things that this new configurator does and the new custom conversion website does is it changes your old configuration files that you had from before, from version 2.19 and before, and it converts them to the new format, which is version 2.20 and higher, to use the new system or the new setup. So one thing you have to make sure is when you go to your, for example, to your Xplane folder and you go to the plugins SimVimX, you need to make sure before you start doing these conversions that you have this devices.prf file in there, because that's going to take all the preferences that you had in your previous configuration file that you're trying to convert, and it's going to put those preferences into the new configuration file. So now is no longer going to use this in the future. It's going to put the preferences directly into the configuration file instead of having a separate file. So if you go to the data file that we just converted, and if we go way to the bottom, you'll notice that it has a preference section here. But I guess apparently for whatever data now that I have saved in this configuration file, I don't have anything with preferences, so I didn't save anything. But it's going to save them right here. All right, so let's get rid of that. Okay, now one of the hardest things that I had to relearn in order to do configurations now in the new system is, for example, let's say we go to the well, let's just go to the 737 since that's the one I work with a lot since the beginning. So one of the cool things about the website again is that if you've ever wondered, like when you're trying to assign something, like I wonder what keyword, or I'm sorry, what parameter or command is associated with this particular button or switch or display or whatever. Now, if you just come to the maps, when you see a red box around these, that means that you're not going to be able to assign them to anything right now, and I'll explain why. But let's say you click on something and you see how it, I guess I can move. So you see how it says pre-configured by default in the SimVim database as pedo heat warn R for right. So basically that's, and then it also has that's the keyword, and then it has in the next little steps there that I can't move my mouse over, it has the actual data ref or command that is associated with that. So if you ever wondered, you know, if that's the right one and you're using the data ref tool, I almost forgot the name of it, that will give you an indication of, oh yeah, that is going to be the one that does that function in the simulator. So that's kind of cool. So now right now, if you notice, if I go through all the different things on this page, you'll notice that everything has a red box around it. So anything that has a red box around it, you can click on and you can see the data reps or commands and the keyword that is associated with that. Now, but at first I was trying to think, okay, because remember before when you had the list of pins over here that you can just click on anything and then a little pop-up box will open and it would let you select what pin you want to put it on. Well, now the difference now is that you have to actually have something open with that type of pin that allows you to use that. So let's just say I just wanted to assign these probe heat switches here. So now I have to go to digital input, which is our direct input. And then now that you have this open, this shows you all the pins that are available. So because remember I already have a bunch of input multiplexers and everything on this configuration file, that's why it doesn't show that all of these are available. So I can't put them there and I can't put them here. So it only shows me the pins that are available. So let's just say we choose number 8. So now when we go to one of the switches, you see how the thing turned yellow now? That means that you can assign it. So if I go to something like an LED or a display, it's still red because I cannot assign them there. But if I click on a switch and it says select an IO pin to assign, now I can put it there and it's assigned. Now if I wanted to assign, let's say, uh, let's just say I wanted to do something with a 7-segment display for this. I would need to click on 7-segment display and I need to select where I want to put the display. So first I have to click on a pin, and let's say I wanted to put it on pin number 34, and it asked me, do I want to connect a new 7-segment display? And I say okay. So now when I click on one of these, you see that they're yellow, but the other ones that are not displays obviously are not yellow, and these are not either because they're just LEDs that are going to be illuminating something behind this, right? So if I click on this, and then I can put it in there, and I'm going to go through all this like I said in a future video, because otherwise this one's already probably turning out to be pretty long. um, but right here, for example, you can change the type of display that you want to connect there. All right, so that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Just a quick oversight of the website and the basically the layout of how it works. Like I said, I do plan to go into more detail in the future of all the uh, different things that you can do with the different types of inputs and outputs and everything, just like I have in the past. But anyways, hopefully this little overview is helpful for you guys, and hopefully I can start getting right back into making more videos and continuing the Back to Basics series, but now with the way the website looks now and the way you have to click on everything to make it work now. All right, so thank you guys very much for watching and for hopefully sticking around now that I'm back, and we'll see you on the next one.